The Gospel of John, chapter 13, verse 36. Where I am going, you cannot follow. Preface. Understand this and will be just fine. This is a love story. We will go to places that are unfamiliar, places that sicken you, see things that make you want to scream, to hide, to close your eyes and stop your ears, to die. To the dark, the echoing dark, the empty dark, the skinning dark, the decomposing, disemboweling dark, the sweet, bright, beautiful dark. But always remember, this is a love story. Understand this and will be just fine. Danny. The scent of burning flesh reminds me of the warehouse 40 miles and 3 hours from Mostar. The scent of burning flesh reminds me of the sound of my mother's body dropping to the floor. The scent of burning flesh reminds me of the emptiness of a sky with no birds, of factories with no machines, of roads with no cars, of crumbling concrete with no weeds, stretching for a sun that never shows its face, of nights with no end and days with no hope. The scent of burning flesh reminds me to be angry. The scent of burning flesh reminds me there is a price for everything. The scent of burning flesh lingers in curtains, sheets and clothes, in the dust caught in the sunlight, in photographs and the flakes of paint beneath your nails, in the creases of notes left on the table by the door. The scent of burning flesh fills my nose like the last flecks of cocaine long after he leaves. The shower doesn't wash the smell away, and I'm still buzzing from it as I head into the orange-grey half-dark of the evening, looking for an anonymous internet cafe. Even with a pocketbook full of URLs and passwords, my own personal tunnel to the heart of the darknet, Oxford is nowhere near anonymous enough. I get off the Oxford tube coach at Victoria, make the short walk to the Underground, pay for a Zone 1 to 2 travel card with cash, head for no line in particular, take the first train 2 stops and find the nearest internet cafe I can, which takes longer than I imagined it would. Now everyone has tablets and smartphones. Who needs internet cafes? Fortunately, at least enough people like me, people who have a reason to want somewhere you can pay your few pounds, not to access an otherwise closed world, but to buy the right number of blind eyes. The place I eventually find is out the back of a tiny shop that has an LED display advertising phone unlocking and a selection of badly displayed mugs and plastic red phone boxes. I hand over £2 to the guy behind the counter, who hands me a slip of paper with a login code without looking up from whatever magazine he may or may not be reading. 2 pieces of MDF each hold a small flat-screen monitor and come with a stool that doesn't quite fit alongside an enormous, unwieldy tower. There's no CCTV, and there are no eyewitnesses to link the person who got off the Oxford tube, who was different enough from the one who got on, to this grey, grimy corner of London. And after a few slow screens, the last links between this machine and the communications entering and leaving it are lost in the endlessly rerouting quicksands of the dark web. I open the email from the organisation calling itself We Claw, no exit. Reply to this email with the subject line confirm, and you will be sent an email with the subject line confirmed, a URL identifying the location of an offline digital dead drop, and a password you should use to access the folders it contains. The folder called Sartre gives a location. Be at that location exactly 12 hours from the time stamp of the confirmed email. A car will pull up and flash its hazard lights 3 times. Get in the driver's side door. I minimise the screen and put my head in my hands. Why do we do this? Why do we perform some meaningless set of actions as if to provide some kind of shorthand to ourselves that lets us know, this is my moment of choice. I need to think. Does anyone actually run through a list of pros and cons, of consequences and recriminations, a checklist of our consciences in these moments of ritualized decision-making? Or is it the kind of pause for respect we make in the presence of something bigger than we are? The way you see someone gasp in the movies when someone opens a case and it's full of money. Or was it just that the moment it was over, the hatred that had sustained me for 20 years would be over too? Was this just the last nostalgic grasp of the ashes before I let them slip into the wind forever? Because I wasn't choosing. The choice had been made 2 decades ago by a terrified young girl in a battered warehouse in the burning ruins of Yugoslavia, more than a decade before she joined the English police. Alice. I started hanging with Cassie the week my dad walked out and I fell in hate with the world. We'd been in the same class for 4 years and never spoken, but that week we sniffed out each other's pain like junkies cramping for a hit. It was Saturday afternoon in early summer and I was in the parks. Over the bridge and off the path, 2 fields to the right where the banks are too overgrown for punters to stop, and before the wide green spaces by the rollers where picnickers spread themselves out like strings of peppers in the sun. At the back of the field is a broken tree that provides total privacy, whatever you want to do. And what I wanted to do was burn cigarettes into my arms till the cherries reached the bone. I looked at the cigarette I had in one hand and I looked at the lighter I had in the other, and at the clean white flesh streaming down like wax from both. I wondered which arm would burn better, which arm would hurt more, on which arm I could knock the wound more often in the days to come to relive the pain. I could smell the smoke already, and as I imagined it changing slowly into the scent of burning flesh, I heard a voice above and behind me, and realised the smoke wasn't in my head. "The left," said the voice. I turned. Cassie was laid out on the fallen trunk, draped in black cotton that ran off her thin frame like water, so she looked like she was part of the tree, some kind of dryad waking from the wood. She raised a hand to her mouth, turned her head and blew smoke at me through the black painted lips. "Eh?" "The left forearm," she said. "If you're right-handed, it's easier to knock the scab off your left forearm and open the wound just mooching, with your hand in your pocket. That's what you were wondering." I started to speak, but Cassie just smiled and said, "Welcome to the charnel house." I smiled back and lit my cigarette, and I didn't want to burn myself anymore, so I took long, deep draws, aiming the smoke back up at her. But it just blew back in my face and we both laughed. She lit a second cigarette from the embers of the first, pulled on it once and asked, "What do you find beautiful?" For a moment I was filled with an overwhelming physical desire just to say, "You." But I bit down, thought, and said, "The absence of small talk." She laughed, a nicotine and catarrh kind of laugh. "I love decay," she said. "It reminds you that everything's temporary and that's okay, that death is the most natural thing in the world. What could be more beautiful than having the freedom to stop breathing any time you want? No reproach, no wailing, no gnashing, no tearing of clothes, no get your homework in or pay your bills or be nice to the arseholes who want you to suck dick or wash tables and bow and say thank you for the privilege. The freedom just to stop. Like Rutger Hauer in Blade Runner. Stop. Right where you are and not breathe anymore and slowly return to the soil and the air like everything else. Decay tells you death is okay. Death is beautiful, and that makes the life you have in the meantime beautiful too." I said, "Decay doesn't pretend." "Exactly," said Cassie. "Decay doesn't pretend. It just is what it is." In a single fluid movement, she jumped up off the trunk and sat down beside me, and we sat like that for what seemed like hours. After a while, I could sense her tensing beside me, twitching nervously. Eventually she turned to me and said, "This is the deal if we're going to be friends. You don't ever try to save me. Not ever." We sat in silence for several more minutes, the only things alive around us the glow to fade pulse of our cigarette ends. Cassie rolled up her long black sleeves and laid her arms out in front of me like an offering. Faint white scars carpeted her skin like a bed of pine needles. I thought they looked beautiful. "Not those," she said, holding her wrists closer. Beneath the others like unnatural creatures hiding in the darkness of the deep. 2 fainter lines on each wrist, fainter but wider, longer. I couldn't take my eyes away. "I'm okay now," she said, rolling her sleeves back down and holding my eyes with hers. "But one day I won't be. And when that day comes, it's my choice. It's my choice when, and it's my choice how, and that's non-negotiable. Get that and we'll be fine. Don't get it, and you can fuck off now." "I get it," I said, and I did. I knew somehow even then at the darkest point I'd never kill myself, but that was me. That was the way I lived, that was my right, and it was hers to go through with it. I would never tell her what to do, and she would never tell me what to do. And that was the basis for the best friendship I ever had. Short. So short, just like I knew it would be, as I sat there watching her smoke, with the broadest grin on her face and the sunlight glinting on her hair, and every care in the world dripping like dead ash to the floor. But oh, how she shone. How she shone.